Now, to kick our programming off today, we have our next panel comprising a group that will offer a variety of perspectives on aligning the education and workforce pipeline to meet the needs of our state's growing semiconductor industry. The semiconductor landscape across our state is changing rapidly, and success depends on strong collaboration between higher education and industry. Today's session brings that collaboration to life with a series of short TED-style talks on work to drive an innovative Central Texas partnership. Our panel will cover how institutions are aligning programs with real employer needs, how companies are investing in long-term talent pipelines, and how students are gaining meaningful, hands-on experience that helps ensure Texas stays ahead in this important industry. To get us started, I'd like to introduce Dr. Garrett Groves, Vice Chancellor of Strategic Initiatives at Austin Community College. Dr. Groves leads the institution's efforts to build strategic partnerships that benefit both the region and ACC students. Groves is also an inaugural member of the Workforce Advisory Board for the National Semiconductor Technology Center at the U.S. Department of Commerce, and he serves as the Workforce Subcommittee Chair for the Texas Semiconductor Innovation Consortium Advisory Panel. Mark Derderian, the Director of Talent Development and Training at Applied Materials, will also join us this morning. In this role, he leads the Global Manufacturing Training Institute. Dr. Alyssa Reinhardt is the Director of Workforce Development for the Texas Institute of Electronics at the University of Texas at Austin. TIE is a $1.45+ billion national semiconductor innovation and manufacturing initiative, a startup within UT, building the facilities, technology platforms, and talent pipelines needed to keep the nation competitive in advanced electronics. And finally, Ian Reyna is a student at Austin Community College pursuing studies in mechanical engineering while working as an engineering technician at Applied Materials. He supports equipment testing and technology operations, gaining valuable hands-on experience with advanced semiconductor systems. Please join me in welcoming our speakers to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Garrett Groves. I have the honor of serving at Austin Community College. I'm our Vice Chancellor for Strategic Initiatives. And I'm going to pretend like my trustees are not in the room and say I get to do all the really fun stuff at the college, our external, internal partnerships, our dynamic engagement across the region. But today we're going to talk about what I know we're all hearing a whole lot about, which is that our world is changing faster than ever before. In fact, there's a very real concern that we don't know how to keep up. How many remember that we used to be terrified that robots were coming to take our jobs? The robots were going to eat us. This was the concern. Now we're not really talking about that much at all. It's the fact that AI is going to take our job. And tomorrow's challenge is going to be when we put those two together. We can't keep up with the changes, and too often our programs and our curriculum is feeling static or stagnant. And today we're going to talk about a case study on how part of that solution very well comes from our ability to engage directly with industry and partner with companies in a way that's as dynamic and fast as their world is changing. So we'll talk about the talent pipeline. I'm going to try to also apply across Texas and across industry. Our specific example is a semiconductor case study. But we're not only, at least my intro won't only speak to that. I'll try to also show how this can apply in other areas and other ways. But as we walk through the case study at ACC, we'll also have a unique ability to talk to Mark Derderian, who will bring the industry perspective. Alyssa Reinhardt will bring a university research perspective. And then I'm looking most forward to asking Ian a few questions about how he experiences all of this from an employee-student perspective. Chips are the new oil. This was the rallying cry coming out of the pandemic when all of a sudden we couldn't buy automobiles, our computers weren't working, and everybody had to learn that chips didn't mean tortilla chips. We no longer called them computer chips because they were now embedded into everything. And phrases like this became alarmist, became a giant deal. Chips are the new oil. And apologies to my friends from Houston in the region, you may disagree. Certainly in Austin and Dallas, we do view it this way. It is a critical, important industry. But it's also emblematic of the moment that we're in. Almost every industry and every company is clamoring for workforce. Workforce has never been more important and more topical, whether that's now the push for data centers, electricians, it's welders. In fact, raise your hand if you don't have a nursing shortage in your region. Every one of us has critical workforce shortages, and the system's not working for companies who can't get the talent, can't grow, and in the case of semiconductor, can't protect our national security because they can't hire for good paying jobs. And it's not working for our students, employees who would love to have these jobs that pay a good wage but can't get them. The problem there isn't the students, and I'd argue it's not necessarily the industry partners either. It is us, the bureaucratic systems that have built an education system from over a century ago. And the way in which we pivot and move is what we were going to talk about today. Specific to semiconductor, I'll share just a little bit because I know this isn't everyone's story. It's broadly split into, you have a lot of manufacturing talent, and then you have a lot of R&D, high-skilled PhD research talent. And about the time we started investing really heavily through the CHIPS Act in this country, we started getting really worried about the workforce we weren't going to be able to find. This is just one study saying, the existing systems will grow. That looks like a flat line. That's actually assuming that our systems will add manufacturing and research talent. But that dotted red line points out the fact that the assessment was our educational system will fail. It will not find 58% of the jobs. It will not provide the skills to employees who would like to have those jobs. Nearly 60% of the workforce would go missing. And it wasn't just one part of the system that wasn't meeting the need. It was every part of it in this pipeline. We have from computer scientists, PhDs, masters, bachelors, and yes, a whole lot of 2-year technical technician positions. Here in Texas, several of us are able to also address that bachelor need. I put a box around the community college piece of this because that's the piece we're going to speak from a little bit today. Not only do several of us, ACC included, have bachelor's degrees that meet this need, but a lot of the work is helping companies understand that, maybe a bachelor's degree isn't really what you need for incredible skilled jobs. Let's look at this and don't just demand a BA and not knowing what's in it. What are the actual skills you need? And we can provide those more quickly for you. We can address these needs more at your timeline, for your bottom line. So semiconductor is something that is really important to just a couple places in Texas. It's really important in north central Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it's really important in central Texas. These, by some measures, are the 4th and 5th largest areas in the country for workforce in semiconductor. Critical. It's Texas Instruments, it's Samsung, it's Applied Materials, it's NXP, who I have to say used to be Motorola. Many folks don't know NXP, and if our friends from NXP were here, they'd be cringing right now. But we take these companies for granted, but they are giants. Samsung alone is investing $45 billion in a little town just northeast of here called Taylor. They had 3,000 people in their town when it was announced they were getting $45 billion. You can imagine what that does to a region. But one of the points I wanted to make is that whatever region of Texas you're in, you have the same kind of workforce demand for a different industry. You have a different shortage that's specific to your region, and you have a set of regions that you need to be responsive to. We've done these analyses. We understand these dynamics. We generally don't answer them. Just a little bit about ACC, Austin Community College, if it's somewhat new for y'all. We're a large Central Texas community college. We have 6 counties. If I was in any other state, I'd point out that this is the size of Connecticut. To those of us here, we know Texas is big. We have 12 campuses. We'll serve over 75,000 people. We have a lot of workforce programs. We have a lot of things we're doing. This is just one part of that. But I offer the context because I want to talk about this slide. There are 2 different bar charts here. One is our welding program, the lighter gray on this slide. And we're really proud that our welding program has grown by almost 50%. Almost all of us are trying to grow programs like nursing, like welding, and these other aspects. That was a giant win for us. But it is dwarfed by the case study we want to talk about today, which is the larger lines that grew from just over 100 people to now almost 3,000. And the data I'm getting for the year that we just completed is well high of that. We want to talk about how did we build a program that grew so many students. Yes, we have 75,000 students, but to have 3,000 all of a sudden in a new program that's intensive is a giant win for the college. It's a giant win for our industry and for our region. We built it with all of these companies, and I get to put their logos on this slide because they've given us permission to endorse the programs we're about to talk about. They've given us quotes. They've highlighted how great it is. One of them, NXP, flies one of ACC's instructors to a nearby state I shouldn't name, Arizona. because they feel like they can't find an institution anywhere in Arizona to do what they're getting from ACC. And I struggle to explain to our partners across the country why that is. Because the programs and what we're doing sounds familiar. If any of you have a technical background in manufacturing, you know what these areas, we're teaching the same things you would expect. AC/DC current, pneumatics, some of the basic pieces of what robotics need and what these things need to look like in industry. The key is not our curriculum, it's the way we've embedded with industry to do it. And it's so valuable, they will pay the flight, the room and board, the tuition, and the salary of their employees to go to those classes at their facility in Chandler, Arizona. And they fly our instructor out every month for a week. And we're working with partners in Arizona to help transfer what we're doing, and it's not been as easy as you would think. And we're going to talk about some of why that is. Applied Materials is here today. They're the most robust partner in what we've built out. I won't steal a lot of what they're here to talk about. But this work has been intensive, and it's been happening now for several years, and I'm excited to share more about it. Because it's also now been lifted up and nationally recognized, which was a bit of a surprise to us. It turns out that we have the SEMI Foundation. We were the very first program in the country that they certified as a program of excellence and quality. Merit America reached out and said, we want to scale the best semiconductor program in the country, and we've been led to you, ACC. How do we now scale that to other parts of the country? We're working with them right now to extend one of our programs potentially into New York, Nevada, and maybe Arizona. We've been held up by MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and several federal agencies, and all of them are hanging their hat not on the quality of our curriculum, not that we have better instructors and faculty than anyone else, but because we have deeper connections with industry than anyone else. Now there's a bit of a trick I'll explain. We also had a head start. If you remember, there's not a lot of semiconductor partners across the country, so you have to have these companies in your region. We also have had them for well over 15 years. They've been in this region. We've had time. So we had a great head start to do it. But there are 20 other regions across the country that haven't done this. And we'll talk through what it looks like and why that's been so successful. I call it an open secret, but we do seem to have a secret as to why we've been able to do this dynamic industry collaboration. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the first part. This is our team. If any of you want to follow up later and ask more details on how we did it, Dr. Laura Marmoleo is actually the one who built this program. She worked in industry before she came to us. That's one of the key pieces. You think differently when you're not in an educational institution. You actually use different words, and the words mean different things, and often industry and education talk past each other and we don't even know it. It really matters to have that understanding of industry. When you're talking to a floor manager who needs certain skills to meet the bottom line and they need it to be responsive at a certain timeline, you have to come back and know that doesn't mean I'm going to come back to you in 6 months after I engage an advisory panel. It's not at all what that industry partner is saying. But that's what our system's designed to do. Laura hired a team. She started out with a couple faculty members. She now has 42 engineers retired serving as instructors to serve those 3,000 students. What they built we'll describe this way, and then I'll invite our panelists to come share a bit more about the context of this. We do have an academic program, number 2. Think of this as our traditional semester-based. You sign up for classes. Your classes are probably Monday and Wednesday, or they're Tuesday and Thursday. They're 3 hours. You go when you can. You try to get a good grade. And you pay tuition for the privilege of doing it. But rapid earn and learn training is what we built out. We built it from our non-credit side. Those of you that are familiar with community colleges know that we have both a credit and a non-credit side of the house. If those terms are new, I'm happy to follow up later, because part of the dynamic secret here is that we can take the best of both these models and be far more flexible and build something far different that works. Earn and learn is probably a phrase some of you have heard. We've been talking about this for 30, 40 years in this country. The way I start to talk about it now is from the student perspective. You can either pay tuition and pray for good outcomes when you're done. Do I get a better job? Do I get a better promotion? Or you can get paid by your employer on the clock to go to college for the promotion that's ahead of you. Therefore, it shouldn't surprise you. Of those 3,000 students, 2,500 of them are in earn and learn training options. That's what they want. 350 are in our normal, traditional semester-based programs. Who wouldn't opt in for an aligned job where you're paid to go to college? And it is college. They're getting up to 18 credits for a set of classes we designed that's specifically what they need at work. The reality that many of us might forget is that even those students that are in academic programs who are paying tuition to go to semester-based structures, 80% of them are also working. But they're working hospitality maybe, or service, or in an area they want to move, or they're trying to up their lives, they're trying to figure these things out. The conducive model on a workforce side needs to be way more embedded with the work that our students are doing and having to take on. So I have a few slides just to kind of give you some context for the conversations that's going to follow. Our rapid training has 3 elements that we built out, and we can give you a lot more information if it's helpful later. We have 160-hour entry-level rapid training. There are lots of these across the country. Maricopa is famous across the country out of Arizona for having a program called Quick Start. The difference with ours is that we built it with our industry partners, and we update it now. We're looking at our 3rd update in 5 years. It's got 6 hand-based, get into a technical environment and demonstrate your skills, but then it's got the didactic quality and elements to it. In 160 hours, we can get you your first job. We'll get you employed, making almost $50,000 a year, which in Austin isn't that much, but it's more than you can make at service and hospitality. You can get a good job in a month. But the core of what we've done is this mid-level training, which we call CAST. This is the training we do while you're now employed at one of those companies. We have broken down our semester-based classes into 8-hour or 16-hour chunks. So one of your days at your company, you're going to go to their training floor that has ACC on the wall, and we'll teach that class in your environment while you're getting paid your same wage to go to school. And we've got over a year, we've spread out a semester of training into that environment. The capstone is what's really fascinating to me. We got most well known because we were the first to create a STARS program that brought 2 individuals from all 5 of those companies. The companies pay a month of salary for their employees to go away. They come to ACC and we run them through rigorous training that those companies helped us co-design. And the secret is, and Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think the companies thought it would work, right? Up until then, we had built customized training for exactly what they wanted. Here we said, we can get you a skilled technician, your biggest need, give us a month. We'll run them through 40 hours a week, intensive training. And when we got done with that first cohort, those students said, this is amazing and it's way too much. Please slow it down, we can't keep up. And then we talked to our employer partners and they said, that's perfect. Because they're not just students, they're our employees and they're not producing on the floor. This is a wonderful opportunity to get training and get college credit. In fact, we want to add 2 more days. This is where we embed virtual reality. This is where we're testing new models. This is where we're understanding and adapting as quickly as we can to the models of training. Together, those 3 create what you could call an apprenticeship program. We call it an apprenticeship light. It's an unregistered or a light form of an apprenticeship model. And we can talk later about the limits of apprenticeship. It's never going to scale to thousands of people, but it's our gold standard. It's great. It's sequenced. It tells you exactly where you're going to go, what training, what pay, what career advancement. But it locks companies into career progressions that their industry might not be ready for. This can serve 10 times the people. This is what our 2,500 students are in, and we are going to scale it well beyond that. One of the things it does is now this system works for companies. Remember at the very beginning, I'm talking about our skills gaps and how our system doesn't work for companies. Well, this does. Because one of the giant secrets is that companies don't actually know the answers to our basic questions. What skills do you need? What job do I get? How do I move up? Most companies have not built career progressions. Most companies are not applied materials. But we were able to work with our region over the years to pull them all together, and year after year, we built this model. You can see where AMP is our entry-level program, where CAST, where STARS map directly to, and every industry has slightly different titles and terms, but you can see where it maps to a career progression. And then where those rapid training programs, you can slide directly into our credit-based, degree-based programs, and how those continue to advance you in the model. And when you do this well and catch the attention of great big research tier 1 institutions, they say, hey, let's add on a master's degree for your students. And we say, really? You do that? Wonderful. So we now have a UT master's degree that our students who start out in our AMP or CAS programs can move all the way through and enroll in. The pathways build once you have a real core of excellence that makes sense to all the partners. This is my last set of slides, but I want to show why it works so well for students. The rapid training looks like this. I can start at AMP, I can get a job, I'll be in CAST, I'm now going to get skilled up, get paid to do that training. I can do STARS a month long, and now I'm that skilled technician, which this industry was screaming for. Why does it take 3 years to get skilled technicians? Do I really have to wait for you to churn out more associate degree students? This is an alternate model. Companies now get to know their employees. They come in at the beginning of CAST, they're moving up. They get to know who's dedicated, who's invested, how are they going to advance, how are they going to spend time with their employees, how are they going to upgrade their skills, upgrade the culture, spend time investing with them. Now they get to do that all together. And at the end of that pathway, you get 18 college credits, all for the privilege of doing on-the-job training at your employer. Compare that to the academic program, it's so much longer, and you're doing it in isolation of industry. If you enroll full-time and you don't skip a beat, it'll take you 2 years to get the equivalent level of technical training out of an associate's degree. But the vast majority of our students are not going full-time. Lots of them are going part-time. Increasingly, we're all taking care of loved ones, older and younger. Increasingly, we're worried about paying rents. Life happens, we're stopping out of school. We're all working really hard to make that a whole lot better. But one of these models helps with all those challenges. The other one makes it harder. And so as students move through 2 years, it takes 4 years to get to that Bachelor's of Applied Science, add another year or two to do that master's program. Who wants to set out on a 6-year path to get all the way through that pathway while you're working somewhere else and in a skill set that you're not actually building? So I didn't mean to be so somber this early in the morning, but I appreciate you all bearing with us for that part. Next, I'm going to invite Mark Jadarian to come up and speak a little bit about, from their perspective, why is Applied Materials looking at this? How are they doing it, and why are they building it in this particular way?
Thanks. Let's hear it for Garrett. I am super excited to be with y'all today. I really am. It's a privilege to be here with you and tell you a little bit about our programs and the work we've been doing at Applied Materials. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about Applied, and then I want to tell you about my own little personal journey. I'll try not to hit my microphone here. And then the work that we've been doing with ACC and University of Texas and those programs. I'm going to take this approach of this good, better, best model. And I think that's something that we've learned at Applied is we've had some really good partnerships. We've had some that are better, and then we've learned what is the best. And I want to tell you a little bit about what that best looks like. First off, I work at Applied Materials. It's probably the biggest semiconductor company that none of you have heard of, maybe some of you. All the time I tell people I work at Applied Materials and they say, oh, I have a friend that works at AMD. And I'm like, no, not AMD, Applied Materials. So we make the equipment that makes the chips that go into every piece of electronics in this world. Over 99% of all microchips go through our equipment. So it's a pretty big thing that we do, right? A big impact that we have on technology today, especially on this AI race that is happening right now. So let me tell you about my journey. So I started off at Applied Materials in 1999 as a technician. I had a 2-year degree, and I went to work on the manufacturing floor. Right? I was testing the equipment, similar to what Ian does, and he'll tell you a little bit about that here in a little bit. What I noticed right away when I started this job is that every program related to upskilling, training employees was focused on who? The people that did not work inside the clean room, right? I was considered a direct labor role. I was turning wrenches every day. So all these wonderful programs where people got to go to University of Texas for a special master's program, or we even had some colleges come on site, none of it was for the technicians on the floor. That was really frustrating to me, and it left a big impact on me when I was in that role. So I made it a goal of mine that if I was ever in a position of authority at Applied Materials, that I would ensure that I changed that. I continued to go to school. I got a bachelor's degree. I was able to get into a management position. I then continued and got a master's degree at St. Ed's. Is St. Ed's in the room? St. Ed's? All right. St. Ed's, thank you. Y'all are awesome. UT was a little too expensive to me. All right, let's be real. Okay, I couldn't. And so it was great to be able to do that and eventually get into a position where I could now influence the upskilling and training of employees at Applied Materials. My particular focus was around manufacturing, and it continues to be that. So now I want to tell you a little, so that was my personal journey and how I got to where I am today. I want to tell you a little bit about our experience now in working with different colleges and universities. And this is where I want to get into that good, better, best approach that we've seen. So when we started to first meet with universities and colleges, they all had different ideas of how they could support us. We told them our needs, our challenges. We talked to them about the skills gap and the challenges that we had in finding good qualified technicians. You have to realize that Applied Materials, when we're ramping, so are a lot of other industries. During our last ramp, during the COVID era, not only were we looking to hire hundreds of employees, but so was NXP, so was Samsung, so was Tesla. Everyone was looking for this same skill set. So we had to get a little creative in how we had to find those candidates. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that in our later approach when we get into that, the best approach to working with colleges and universities. So initially, colleges would offer up a discount. We'll say, oh, well, we'll give you a 40% discount on classes. And I thought, oh, that's great. That's really good. We could benefit from that. Another college said, we will match your tuition assistance program and we will give you an additional $5,200 on top of whatever Applied Materials will provide. And again, that was great. We all know that tuition prices have gone way up, and the $8,500 that Applied Materials initially offered to their employees was good, but it wasn't enough any longer. I remember by the time I finished my master's degree, I could barely pay for 2 classes with that $8,500. So to have a university come to us and say, we will give you an additional $5,200 was pretty nice. So this was good. We were happy with that, right? So we then were like, well, what else can we do? What else is there out there? So we started to talk to some additional colleges and universities, and they started to say, well, how about you sit on our advisory board? You can now influence what some of the curriculum looks like, the courses. We're like, okay, well, that's good. We haven't seen very many specialized curriculums around semiconductors. And so we started working with them on that. So that was better, right? So it's getting better. So now what does the best look like? And so I had no idea what the best, what really was. And you're gonna see Garrett blushing over here a little bit as I talk about this, because what is the best? We now have almost every week Austin Community College coming on site, delivering classes for us, right? We have a very customized curriculum for our needs for Applied Materials. We are able to upskill our technicians. Just this last year, we upskilled over 400 technicians from an assembler role into a manufacturing technician role, right? It is the benchmark for the rest of our company. We're starting to do it in our Boston facility. We've already started to do it in Singapore, and we're looking to do more of it in California as well. What makes it the best as well is they said, hey, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna help you get grant funding. So just this last year, we received almost $400,000 in grant funding, so that all those classes that ACC was coming on site to deliver were free to Applied Materials. We didn't incur any cost. So when I'm getting in front of my executive team and I'm talking to them about this program, trying to sell this idea of having people being paid by the hour, but sitting in a classroom getting college credit, that it is free of charge to Applied Materials. That's how I sell that idea. Otherwise, most of the time they say what? Oh, if you want to get a degree, if you want to continue your education, you need to do that outside of work hours. So for them to agree to allow their employees, like Ian here, to be able to go through these classes during working hours is huge, right? That was a huge benefit to them. Ian here, and you're going to hear more about it, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but he is one of the greatest examples of how these programs work. Ian is part of an apprenticeship program. So this is another thing where we needed a good partner. We are the first registered apprenticeship program in the semiconductor industry in Texas, and I think the second in the semiconductor equipment industry in the United States to have a registered apprenticeship. Registered apprenticeships are great because we get additional grant funding, right? We're able to receive more benefits as a corporation when we do that. So Ian is part of this apprenticeship program, but to do that you need to have a partner like ACC where we can send them to classes. They need to complete, I think, 3 or 4 classes to be part of that program. So the earn and learn model is what we needed. So that's what companies need now, right? There's the good, there's the better, and there's the best. We really need the best. We need good partners where we're talking all the time. You are coming on site. We are going to you. We are figuring out a solution together that works for both of us, right? University of Texas is a great partner as well. We're starting to develop more partnerships here. Alyssa's going to talk to you more about that here in a second. But I am just so excited about what we've been able to accomplish and what the future looks like for Applied Materials and these partnerships. And we are excited to talk to more of you as well, right? We're not limited to just one pathway, right, in one college or university. We want to see what else we can do to benefit our employees. So that's all I have. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Alyssa, University of Texas.
And I could go on and talk about this for hours, so I tried to make sure that I had my notes here to keep me to time. But so again, I represent the Texas Institute for Electronics at UT. We are a commercial entity within UT, and I'll get a little bit more into like what we are. But kind of as you heard from Garrett, from Mark, there has been really a shift both in sort of the industry landscape that is really sort of pushing the academic landscape to understand how better, how we can better adapt and meet the needs of industry. So I think, traditional universities have focused, more on the foundational theory, the, long-term research and the degree attainment, which a lot of the, for decades, industry is hiring those graduates and giving them some training on the job and getting them up. But that was when innovation, it was taking decades to really kind of move forward in the industry. And so it was more adapted to that model. But right now, particularly in the semiconductor industry, innovation is happening in months. And so to try to be able to keep up with that innovation and making sure that we're actually graduating job-ready students, we have to shift a bit on how we're approaching this. So it's not just about producing graduates; it's producing those job-ready candidates and really working across the ecosystem, and that is part of this partnership. So, just as sort of an introduction to TIE, we grew out of an engineering research center that was at University of Texas for over 10 years. So we did have some of the semiconductor industry ecosystem background. But we are, in essence, to kind of give you an idea of what we're doing. So as the semiconductor industry, like as your phones, have gotten smaller and faster and cheaper, that has been, the innovation behind that has been continuing to evolve, but we're hitting a limit with that, with how we've been evolving and scaling that innovation. So what TIE is set up to do is actually bridge that gap and take us to the next wave. And so there is a lot, and that's why, we have both state and federal investment, including a DARPA program. And for those that don't know DARPA, pretty much everything on your phone, from GPS to the internet, came originally out of a DARPA program. The program that we're working on at TIE is the second largest investment that DARPA has made since the internet. So we're kind of a big deal. But the thing is, because we are this commercial, manufacturing group within UT Austin, it's a little bit different than some of the traditional sort of research and academic units, which puts me in a little bit of a different place. And I wear different hats than what you'd typically see at a university. And I will say my background is in college career pathways and analytics. So I've been, kind of getting into the semiconductor industry. But as Garrett mentioned, a lot of what we're building here is so transferable to other industries, and that's why we're wanting to share this with you. So, at TIE, for example, like I don't just need engineers and PhDs, researchers. I also need technicians. I also need business majors. I need a lot of different types of roles there. And so that in particular, and we're working with a lot of industry partners as part of our project. So it gives me a unique insight into what that type of workforce needs, what those type of workforce needs are. But something as, we started to engage with industry and we started to kind of think about like what we actually needed, there was one kind of challenge that emerged immediately, and that was we are not aligned on what we train. And that is, across, and this isn't just at university. I mean, I think Mark was saying like the good, better, best, like we're getting better in a lot of ways, but traditionally like that has been a little bit disconnected, particularly at the university level. But also the job titles may differ, the competencies may differ. And so having sort of that unified framework for understanding, be able to translate has definitely been a challenge. But so that ends up being when we graduate students, employers are basically like, are they job ready? What skills do they have? And I know in Texas, through the marketable skills initiatives and others, we've tried to do a lot more about translating those learning outcomes to industry partners. But one of the first things something that stuck in my head, one of the first times I met Mark, he talked about Applied Materials NCG Boot Camp, which is a new college grad boot camp. And it's not just for University of Texas students, but it was basically in essence that we are graduating engineers across the country with a strong foundational knowledge. They can do all the math, they get all the theory. They've never picked up a hand tool. And so when they come to Applied Materials, Mark puts them through the technician boot camp because he's like, I can't trust them to be on the fab floor and touch any of this equipment yet. And so that real disconnect between what we are training and what students need to do to be productive from day one, there has been that disconnect there. And that's, so to the extent that Applied Materials is having to invest months, and I've heard some of my other industry partners, it could be a year to 18 months of internal training to get those new engineers up to being able to be productive and useful. And so that's a lot of investment from the industry perspective. And particularly for, both for TIE, who we have very strict milestones and we are moving very fast. We cannot wait both for the traditional sort of academic cycles to hire talent and bring them in. We don't have the time or the money to do that type of onboarding and boot camping. So this was where we tried to think about, so we looked to see how we could, from a university perspective, be more nimble and adapt in some of these skills. So one of the first things we did was talk to ACC. And so something that, to begin closing this gap, so one thing, as you heard what Garrett talked about with the STARS capstone project, we actually worked with ACC to translate that into an undergraduate boot camp. So we took students from across, College of Natural Sciences and Engineering, mostly sophomores and some juniors. We put them through that 176 hours during a summer May term experience to learn some of the same skills or to learn the exact same skills right now to see how this was going. And, one thing that we learned that even our electrical engineering majors were struggling with some of the actual transfer of their theoretical knowledge and even from their ECE labs to actually working with equipment and troubleshooting some of these things. And so we were starting to see this was, even though it was designed for technicians, as we learned from Applied Materials and others, this type of cross-training with technicians was bringing so much depth and value and readiness for our engineering and science students. So that kind of highlighted this other idea of like this challenge where we're not aligned on how we train students. So that's, and part of this, I talked about it before, but historically, universities are not built for speed. And I am a proud graduate of the University of Texas. I love my university. It's great to be back there, but it is a beast of an institution. And so trying to, when curriculum changes move, or you're trying to update curriculum, it has to go through faculty governance, degree audits, accreditation reviews, and multi-year planning cycles, which they're important because they protect the academic quality and rigor. But at the same time, when Applied Materials says, hey, we need people to be able to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, cool, we'll put that in the next planning cycle for curriculum in the next catalog refresh. It's not like from a university perspective, that's just not how we're built. But so that's why it's something where, again, by contrast, where Austin Community College, particularly with these like how they've built their programs, they're able to create new programs within weeks. And especially with that sort of ecosystem development, they've created it in a way that's sort of modular, and we almost come up as a customer. So just for TIE, for the University of Texas, we're able to kind of tap in and leverage those with our industry partners and that gives us that agility and speed that we need to be able to give that to our students. And so, one thing like we are continuing to expand. This was such a successful program. We had one of my favorite anecdotes is, so the University of Texas hosts career fairs, in the fall and the spring. The fall career fair for engineering and science students, we got such great feedback from both the students as well as the companies that students were going up and talking to the industry members, the university recruiting partners, and every single one of the STAR students was like, the person at the table is like, I want you, I'm going to follow up with you. Like, how did you learn about this? This is like, how do you know? And to the point that even other students were hearing our STAR students talk to the industry members, and we're asking their industry members, how do I get into the STARS program? And so it just started to create buzz. And so now, like, we've expanded for this next year, we've expanded to 2 of these level 1 of the STARS program. We're starting to build additional levels for this, and we're actually starting to expand it to other institutions. So Texas A&M is actually sending 2 cohorts of students this summer to take this training program. We're working with other, and we're trying to expand also in the Austin region, but that's this part of where the more that we can build this into other models and take leverage, and leverage this type of partnership, the better we are graduating students that are ready to get these high-skilled jobs and move the industry forward. So I think, kind of just like sustaining that responsiveness. So as part of TIE, we have a workforce advisory board. This is just a small group of who is on my board. I actually co-chair this with Dr. Marmolejo from ACC. So we're building together, and it is part of this partnership is from an industry perspective. We always talk about pathways, and Mark is a great example of how he personally navigated, kind of moving it from his entry-level role and up. That is not exactly, there aren't clear pathways in a lot of industries, particularly this one. And so this is an effort for, like, we can combine forces to be able to talk about from entry level to PhD. As an industry member, what do you need? Who do you need? We meet there, similar to what ACC's been doing with Applied Materials and others. This advisory board is not just a check the box, to come to the meeting. They are reviewing curriculum. I have guest speakers. I have industry lecturers. There's another partner, which I'm gonna try to get AMET to do it next. But I have one industry partner that is just decided she's going to come in and co-teach some of the labs, and she's like, you know what? You just bring your master's students over to our lab. We're going to do labs on site at our fab. Like, I love the university lab experience, but like, we need them to do this. And so they've just opened up their facility to actually bring in UT students and give their time, because they see that this type of engagement is so different, and they're not only are they getting better talent, but they're also helping improve the curriculum that translates back. So it's the thing is where, and that's part of where this is. It's not just, you can't just copy curriculum. It is that ecosystem and that partnership and that trainability, which is why when I started at TIE, I didn't start my own I didn't want to start a separate workforce table. I joined forces in this partnership, and so we can build together and build more of those pathways that really keeping industry first. So where this is going next is that we are, to scale, not just this partnership, but this sort of operating model. The TIE operates 2 facilities at the University of Texas, one up at our Pickle campus up in North Austin, and then our Montopolis site down closer to the airport. It's around, the Montopolis site is kind of our main sort of production fab manufacturing site. It's over 66,000 square feet of clean room space. We are building a joint training center with ACC at this location to provide, again, like what you're learning from here, that hands-on training, those other sort, because typically, especially university level, the hands-on training pretty much only comes if you're, graduate student to get in and you're working on faculty research. This is a training center. So it's getting more of that hands-on curriculum co-designed and co-built with industry, where we can also continue to evolve some of the customized curriculum at all levels for these industry partners in this site. We also, again, we're here because we're passionate about education and pathways. So this is not, we're just trying to hoard all of this. We want to actually leverage this to build additional capacity across for other academic institutions, for other regions. So we're trying to build in, so how we can train faculty, how we can, both at high school, at community college, and universities, how we can offer additional programs, how we can bring more into this this sort of ecosystem to benefit from what is being built here. So I think that was my last slide, and I'm going to turn it over, which I think probably everyone's the most excited to hear from.
Hopefully we've generated a lot of questions, some thoughts. We'll happy to follow up afterwards. But I really want to ground this whole conversation, why we all do the work we do. I wanted to really bring in a student perspective, and it's interesting to me that we accurately introduced Ian Reyna as an ACC student. I don't know that that's how Ian would introduce himself. He would identify himself as an applied materials employee who that company is increasingly investing in and building around. He just so happens to be an ACC student as part of that work. Ian, you are an engineering technician. You're moving up in the company. We're thrilled to have you here. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. The first being, how did you get your job at Applied Materials? How did it all start?
So I learned about Applied Materials through my father. He has been working at the company since the 90s, so pretty long time, I think 30 years now. So right after high school, I didn't really apply to any colleges. I didn't think I was ready to go to college right after high school. And he recommended me that I apply as an assembler to Applied Materials. And I always had an interest in manufacturing and engineering, so I thought it was perfect for me. So I started at Applied Materials. I got the job as an assembler. And about 6 to 7 months into working at Applied Materials, I learned about something called the apprenticeship program, what Garrett and Mark have talked about. And I thought this was really interesting because I personally wanted to go back to college, and I just valued going back to college a lot for me. And so I reached out to people that were organizing the apprenticeship program at Applied Materials, and they told me that it was a program that allowed you to work full-time like your normal assembler job, but you also get to take a few classes at ACC that would directly apply to what you're doing at ACC. And I thought this was really interesting. Like, I get to, get back into going to college and wanting to further my education, but also, learn a little bit more about what Applied Materials does in like a higher up education aspect of it.
So it's fascinating to me to compare Ian and Mark's stories from different times. Mark had none of these options the years he spent doing education on his own, getting to the point where he could help create this whole different reality. Ian, can you imagine yourself in something more like what Mark experienced if there's not an apprenticeship program?
I mean, yes, like honestly, before I even heard about the apprenticeship program, I was kind of in his position. Like I wanted to go back to college, but I didn't know how to navigate that. I didn't know if there were programs out there at Applied Materials or in other educational institutions. I didn't know anything about that. So learning about that apprenticeship program kind of gave me some light on like, hey, this is still possible for you to go back to college. Mm.
And what do your coworkers ask you the most about? It sounds relatively new. What do you get? What questions do you get?
So the main question I get is, what do you do in the apprenticeship program? And I kind of tell them that you're basically just working at Applied Materials just like you're doing now, but they let you take classes at ACC. It's three to four classes, and it's right after your work day. So right after work, you would go to ACC and it's basically a 1 hour class, and you get to learn basically what you do at Applied Materials. For example, some of the classes that we were taking were automation and DC electronics, and that's pretty much like a large portion of what we do at Applied Materials. So I personally have seen the benefit of being in these ACC classes and how I can apply it to work.
So I'm going to open up our discussion a little bit. And my apologies, there's not mics in the audience, so I'd love to have a dialogue with all 300 of you, but that's not wise, I'm told.
I had to go backwards.
The conversation, oh, we did go
Yeah.
backwards. Mark, I'd like to turn to you and ask a bit about, because you're starting to deepen even more what ACC does with you.
Yeah.
We're actually right now signing a contract to bring us in-house to do even more training. Why take that path?
Yeah, so we've recently started talking with ACC. You know, I have a whole team of instructors that work for us for our onboarding training and sustainment training at Applied Materials. So we're starting to explore another idea, right, where we're looking to ACE to potentially leverage them to help supplement that and increase the agility of my training team. So we're creating a contract now where we can leverage ACC instructors to come in and teach our content. So it's kind of a new concept. We've approached some other companies with that same idea, and they're like, what are you talking about? But ACC was game. And that's what we like, though. That's what we want. We're trying to think outside the box. We're trying to think of different ways to approach learning and development and help us to be a little bit more agile, right? We fluctuate. Our industry does go up and down like so many others. And so from a headcount perspective, for me to maintain that and be able to handle these ramps, like we're moving into a ramp right now where we're going to be adding probably 700 employees. I can't hire trainers and get them up to speed fast enough sometimes. So if I can have a base of instructors at Austin Community College that know our material, and I can pull them in within a week's notice and say, hey, we need you to teach these classes, that's a huge help to us at Applied Materials. So, yeah.
So I want to underscore something you just said, and I'll phrase it this way. People don't expect a lot of us in community colleges. They don't expect much. And I'd argue for many of us, especially those of you that know the community college sector there, we also don't expect much of ourselves. I would venture that most of our institutions do not know what customized non-credit training we're doing. I bet we don't know how many students we're serving. I bet we don't know how much revenue it's bringing in and what's left on the table. And I'd go back and ask, the state of Texas is served by 50 community colleges, all perfectly with service areas, so we cover the entire state. All of us have non-credit programs that were designed to do precisely this. But industry doesn't expect much of us, and so we don't expect much of ourselves. What happens here is that Mark has to believe that we are not just a college, we are a business partner. He can rely on us. We understand because he's taking some risk. He had to have enough experience to know, not me, Dr. Laura Marmoleo, with the technical knowledge in the program she built, he gets more quality, better return, and better profitability. These are words we need to learn how to understand and speak if he works with us as opposed to just doing it in-house himself. Which means when his business shifts or changes, I can't say, sorry, we got to wait till next semester. Sorry, we got faculty who had their heart set on teaching class at 1 o'clock. I can't shift to the night. Like, we can't be that way, or it doesn't happen. But once you start to deliver and start to show you can be that partner, this is what we were meant to be on that side of our house. We can do so much more. And Alyssa, I'll shift to you here in a second about something similar, and I'll unfairly put words in your institution's mouth. I'm also a University of Texas graduate. I did my PhD there. I also love the institution. I won't talk football to everybody in the room. It's the wrong time of year for that. But UT isn't, didn't do as well as some others. What? We'll talk in the hallway. We beat a few teams. That institution, who I love and who I went to and who we revere and who we hold up because they've got to do important things for the state. Texas A&M, all of our institutions have a role. UT is a global institution and they need to be for our state. They have got to do that work well. But in that work, walking around doing global work, they would kick a rock and not know it was ACC. I don't blame them. It's not about individuals there, wonderful people. As systems, they were not incentivized to care about their local community college. But because of this work, that's changing. And a large part of it is because of Alyssa, and I will try not to make you blush the way Mark's been doing for ACC, but could you speak a little bit about how, because of this work, how you're seeing things maybe start to change at the institutional level?
I think, well, so for one, it does help that because of who Ty is and because of the interest and the excitement of the CHIPS Act, we did have a little bit of a benefit here, because especially coming from college and career pathways, like the fact that I now have two BAT, like applied bachelor students into the new UT Master's program is like, I squealed when we were able to make that happen. So that has a little bit enabled kind of a door to open. And so we've just been rushing through to kind of get more, to address a lot of the problems that we saw and kind of use that. I think it does help that, my boss, Dr. S.V. Srinivasan, who is a mechanical engineering faculty member, but also has done several startups and is our CTO and founder of TIE. He helped start the master's program at UT, which is really industry focused. Every student works on an industry project. And so like that right there, it was a good match, I think, for me as well, like the pair of us, because we could see when we looked at what ACC was doing, we could understand the value of that industry alignment and partnership. And so I think that has actually helped kind of translate, as we're continuing to work with ACC, I'm getting more calls, both, to think about other non-semiconductor roles and like, hey, can we bring in ACC to this? I'm starting to get, shifts in some of the faculty who, typically faculty in industry, faculty members, not trying to offend anyone, but you go to industry members and say, this is my research, fund me. Instead of going to industry and saying, what are your problems? How can I solve it? So that service mentality is starting to kind of trickle a little bit more into other areas, to the point that I'm also now for the industry-wide industry outreach teams for university-wide. I'm being brought into those calls. If it's semiconductor or if you close your eye and look, it's sort of semiconductor, anything, like they'll bring me in and they're like, we're going to reference the ACC model. So it's changing a lot because they're seeing more how this is also tied to economic development and deep industry engagement and investment in some of the institutions. And so there's been a lot of different shifts, both understanding, like I have a lot of, when I had engineering professors actually look at the STARS curriculum, and someone's like, this is great. We should, why don't we teach this in undergrad? It's like, well, that's kind of the point. We're trying to give that sort of specialization and have the best of both worlds, where we still have that depth and rigor. We also are able to scale and be flexible and nimble and adapt. So I think people are starting to see, especially with the industry engagement and how much the industry members are willing to call me and work with me. It's really starting to kind of show across the university.
So I'm going to wrap up here with the last question in just a moment, but the work we've done may sound like a lot if you're not in Austin or one of our major cities where there's a lot of opportunity. And we haven't even talked about the other pieces that attach to this. We have partnerships with Army Futures Command. We're building Tesla's curriculum across the country and the world. Like, these things roll into big opportunities. You might be thinking, what do you do if you don't have these sort of assets and opportunities? In other parts of, whether it's rural or urban or just different industries, all of this most recent story started, from my perspective, when I arrived at the college, because Dr. Laura Marmoleo made a point to come to my office and said, Garrett, I don't know what this new job is or who you are, but I think you can help me. We could become this partner to industry. Can you help me do it? That's where it started. We had done some training. We had done some work. She had come from industry and she had this vision. And I'll tell you, her vision was accomplished in year 3. We're well past that. These things build like a snowball rolling downhill. New opportunities come, new things you would not have predicted come in. And at the core of it is that everyone is desperate to show real value to industry who needs skilled talent in our world. There might not be a more highly prized thing in our world right now in the workforce side of what we do than having real valued input and engagement from industry. And it's especially valued because so many of us will say we have it when we're not sure that we do. We'll use the same words, we'll talk about it being there, and it's really hard to know, is it really there or not? We all write grants, I'm writing letters of support, I've always done these things, I hear these words, we're all doing it. But when our federal partners, when our national partners, when our other companies start talking to Mark, they talk to a Samsung, they talk to NXP, they know there's something different happening here, and they have to spend some time to understand what it is. And then they say, wait, you're doing what? I won't name the company, but we're in a meeting in Dallas, and they heard our partners talking, and they hadn't heard us. As a community college, they just didn't expect a lot of us. 5 years of us telling them what we could do, and they were good. They heard Mark and a few other partners, and the CEO walked up to me and said, Garrett, we are going to get our explicative together. We're going to get this figured out. I had no idea that this was a bottom line, that this would drive us forward, that we're losing out. And now they're one of our most aggressive partners right now, building out the same kind of training, trying to catch up. And so an interesting flip, because I'll follow up with questions later because we've got to wrap up soon. I really want to try to give Ian the last word. From your student perspective, knowing you're talking to a room of institutions, college, university, we're here for you. What advice would you have for us?
Some advice that I would have for you is really search out for companies like Applied Materials who value hands-on education and work, because I think that's really beneficial for a student to be able to learn what it's like to work in a position like me. And, it's, as a student coming straight out of college, you're really smart in engineering or anything like that, but you don't really understand what it's like to work a professional job like I do. And I think it's really important for educational institutions to focus on the hands-on training that we need, because that's what's beneficial to us.
We're going to end on that note. Thank you very much for having us. Have a good day. Thank you.